The Iowa State studies, or oftentimes called the Iowa studies, is one of the oldest of the behaviorists. It comes from the late 30s. And in that study, the researchers were looking to see if there were certain types of leaderships that people kind of gravitated toward or clustered around a certain set of behaviors, things that they would do. And their study wound up with the three that you read in the book. And the book does a nice job of mapping out what is authoritarian, what's democratic, and what's laissez-faire. So I'm just going to spend just a minute reviewing those. Authoritarian usually sounds like that original thing we talked about with power, that it sounds like top down and I'm the boss and you do what I say. The thing that we have to remember is that there's always times when you need to be authoritarian. And the other thing to think about as you're thinking of your leadership style is, when are you using authoritarian when one of the other styles would work? Sometimes we go there quickest because it creates the quickest response. I'm the boss, do it. And it isn't the best response in terms of having people being transformational and getting people to commit to what we're doing. They comply to authority, to an authoritarian, but not necessarily once the authority is gone. They don't continue to do that. We all think we are very democratic and that we want to be democratic. There is a caveat with that as well, though. When you're democratic, you need to get people together and have them understand what's going on and have their say in what the decision making is, and whether it's a vote or a discussion or whatever it is that you're doing, it takes time. So you're using up two of the biggest resources that an educational leader has. The resources you have are time and people. And so if you're going to get together and have a committee meet to make the decision, you are using your people and you are using up their time that they could be doing something else. So you have to balance. Is that democratic time to make that decision the best use of their time? Because there's only a finite amount of that. And when it's gone, you may have made a good decision, but what else have you ignored by spending your time on the democratic process? So we have to be kind of balanced with that. And finally, laissez-faire is something that nobody ever seems to forget that word, and they always think of laissez-faire as lazy. And it can be. I mean, if you have a real laissez-faire leader and that's all they do, and it looks like the guy in the picture here, that is pretty a lazy response to leadership. But there are times to take your hands out and not micromanage what's going on, and stay away from making every decision, because your group can dump decisions in your lap that really aren't yours to solve. You know, one of the big brouhahas as I started in school leadership was sending kids to the office for forgetting to bring a pencil to class. And that was something that power should be between the instructor and the student, and not an office power decision. You know, I could have spent all my time, disciplining children for a pencil. And my response to it, by the way, was to give them a pencil and say, go back to class. And then I would put a stack of used pencils in the teacher's mailbox and say, let's talk about this. And they usually didn't talk about it, but they didn't send somebody back again the next time. That wasn't a laissez-faire response. That was kind of a passive authoritarian response. But that was too petty. And sometimes you need to be laissez-faire, or you fill up your life with petty conflicts and petty decisions. The Ohio State studies are going to be a basis for what we talk about in situational leadership. So I went ahead and put an activity along with that, and I think the best picture that I found of what that model looks like is on the page for Activity B. It says Ohio State at the top when you're in the wiki. Across the bottom there is a continuum about structure. That Ohio State study says that some people are very interested in getting the task done well, and so they would be high on that line that runs across the bottom of the chart. The chart runs up the side, where it's like we're going to make a graph. Up the side is consideration, and that's interest in the relationship, in people. Well, what do you want in a leader? Well, basically, you want one high in both, right? You want someone who really wants to get the job done well and really cares about the people. The problem is, very often, the more you care about one of those factors, it diminishes the other. Let's say we are creating tractors. We're in the tractor factory. And we want to have the more tractors out, the better profit we make. So we put in a longer workday so that we can make more tractors. Well, that will increase our structure. We will have more tractors at the end of the week. But what did that do to the working conditions of our workers? Our consideration went down. Well, so we say, well, that's not very nice. You know what? People that really are happy to come to work will do better. So we're going to cut their working hours. So if we cut their working hours, our consideration went up. But not having that many hours, number of tractors went down. There are two surveys within your handout. One of them deals with the Ohio State. One of them deals with the I can't say Ohio and Iowa, but those two theories are both in there. If you're only going to do one, do Ohio State, because you're going to try real hard to get up there and get high, but it's tough because once you go high on one, it makes the other one diminish. And so if you're going to do both of them, I would do the Iowa first and then go to Ohio. But if you're just going to skip, go to and do Ohio. I think that's going to be a piece that may be playing not only to what we're talking about today, but situational leadership as well.